So what course did you play? 2 rounds?
Oh, we might be done with tracking about 9 o'clock tonight. More than that.
No. I'm not a check bag by the time you play your
About 1:30 and get some shorter and stuff. My personal item bags. So I'm down there quarter after 1:30. Just started crazy. They're running about an hour and 45 minutes.
I took a direct flight, and then they took a break once, and they lost my luggage. And since then, I'm just begging in my power to not check a bag, because if you lose them on a direct flight, I just was off Facebook. I did get, I went to New Zealand, so I just had a big backpack. And they kind of asked me, like, they're just that, that's all. See, and they put a little sticker on it, and I didn't know what it was for until I got to the next security checkpoint, and I was like, oh, okay, you're coming with us. And they like wiped me down for like bomb residue and whatnot.
Because they only had one
I
bag.
think they were kind of weirded out by the one bag.
Yeah, right. They're like,
Well,
well, not playing that term.
I think it's the beard.
Well, that's part of it too, I think, maybe.
You didn't have a turban on,
I
did you?
did not, no.
Just wait till you get an eye scan on an international flight, really freak you out.
Oh, what?
An eye scan.
What do you mean?
I had one of those done one time.
Did they scan?
Yeah, like there was a booth that they took you to, and they sat you down, and they scanned your eye, and then they shooed you away.
I had a plane actually at the ground early once. And like we were escorted by fighter jets and it was.
What's the fighter jet gonna do?
I got 5 o'clock.
Pinpoint where the plane actually went down.
Yeah, right.
No, I think they were there to make sure we landed before we hit anything. That would to be the case. And that-
Remind me not to fight with you.
Okay, now I got 5:01. I'm gonna call the meeting to order. Routine business, Open Meetings Act posted on the wall as always. Call the roll.
Vance,
Present.
Brad,
Yes.
Sean,
Here.
Skylar,
Here.
Everybody's present in the county order. Any questions?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item 2, the consent agenda. All items can be approved with the passage of one motion. Minutes, claims, treasurer's report, department heads, and cemetery certificate. I think they're all in your packets.
I was just gonna see, if anybody had questions on this treasurer's report? Did everybody understand my notes?
I was just looking at that, I really haven't.
Okay, so part of it with the wastewater project that we've had some funding reimbursements. The Cdbg reimbursements come as an electronic funds transfer, and that's set up to come into this grant fund, which is 304. So we had 2 drawdown requests that got deposited into that account in March, and that's a physical cash transfer because those are 2 different checking accounts from grant fund into the general checking, which is where the water, sewer, and garbage funds are within. So we physically transferred the money into the general checking, but the timing between when we ran the report in April versus month-end cutoff to hit the balances, we didn't get the post to the sewer fund in time. So the sewer fund balance should actually reflect as 344,874,16. General fund should be underinflated for that 350,000. So 1,273,304,19. So it's just a timing issue basically of when that happened. So we're not actually negative in the fund balance in sewer.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda items, A through E.
Second.
Moved and seconded, any discussion? Go ahead and call the roll.
Brad,
Yes.
Sean,
Aye.
Skylar,
Aye.
Vance.
Aye.
With that, tomorrow, can you send me out a copy of that, revenue,
Oh,
all that?
yeah.
If I can get two of these.
And then consent agenda items approved unanimously. Move on to item 3, the mayor's appointments and report. Mayor's report, I don't have a lot. I think I might mention I had a fun activity last week. Councilman Heyer and I got to go to the high school and visit with the government class. They've been studying local governments, and so there's 2 classes. We answered questions basically for about 40 minutes in each class. Some good questions. Well, they were all good, but some were fun, some were serious. So I had a good time at it, and thought it was worthwhile. Had a chance to talk about some of the city funding and city jobs and things like that. So I don't know, do you have anything on that, Vance?
I think that pretty much sums it up. I thought overall it was good. They seemed interested and
Yeah.
mostly good questions. And we got to hear some of their ideas for projects in the city, and it's neat to see that some of their projects were some of the same priorities that we have, housing, streets, things like that. So I don't know what all goes on here, but I think they get it as far as what the town needs. And yeah.
Yeah, it was a good time. Have a number of appointments this week to get into. First of all, the Citizens Advisory Review Committee. These are 4-year terms that they all ended in March, so want to reappoint Marcus Fairhead and have a couple of new guys that agreed. Was Roger Lechtenberg and Mark Kovar. Those would all be terms that would end March 8th of 2025.
I move we approve the reappointment of Marcus Fairhead and the appointment of Roger Lechtenberg and Mark Kovar to the Citizens Advisory Review Committee on terms ending 3/8 of 2025.
Who are the two coming on?
Chris
Chris
Raymond
Raymond.
and John.
John,
Yeah, I'll second.
move in second. Any discussion? Go ahead and call the roll.
Sean,
Aye.
Skylar,
Aye.
Vance,
Aye.
Brad.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously. Committee on Housing's 3-year term, I'd like to reappoint Jake Kraft and also have Chris Lammers join that team, terms ending 4/8/24.
Who's the one coming off that one?
Reg Bishop was the other one.
And so, we approve the reappointment of Jake Graff and appointment of Chris Lammers on the Committee on Housing with terms ending 4/8 of 2024.
Second.
Moved and second, any discussion? Go ahead and call the roll.
Skylar,
Aye.
Vance,
Aye.
Brad,
Yes.
Sean.
Aye.
And the Sellers-Barton Cabin Advisory Board, 1 3-year term. Would like to reappoint Carol Larson, for a term ending April of 24.
Make a motion to reappoint Carol Larson with term ending 4/12/2024.
Second.
Moving second, any discussion? Go ahead and call the roll.
Vance,
Aye.
Brad,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Skylar.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Item 4, public hearings, there's none today. so we'll move on to old business. And item A is to discuss and consider an administrative subdivision of tract of land identified as Lot 12, Block 11 of Hall's second edition.
Okay, so last month, we tabled this to have a little bit more time to look at it and research it a little bit. So according to the ordinances, I guess the way they're written currently, these two lots, or one lot, potentially two lots, would be located in an R1 residential district. The minimum lot area under the ordinance is a 9,000 square foot lot, with the primary use as a single family home. The current lot is 9,000 square feet, so with the subdivision, it would create two lots at 4,500 square feet, which would make them non-conforming lots. In that area, part of the zoning for constructing anything on a lot, you need a 25-foot setback on the front yard and rear yard and a 10-foot side yard. So 4,500 square feet, that's not going to give a lot of room for any future construction down the road. I see Craig is here. One of the other things to consider, I guess, is when I was going through the ordinances, 10-1301 talks about non-conforming lots of record. Yes, they exist all throughout the city. There's no denying that. There are lots of teeny tiny lots all over the place. The intent of the ordinances typically is to sort of grandfather those in, you know, when the ordinance is changed, but not to allow that type of practice to be continued or extended upon. And 10-302B talks about how when parcels should be sold, that they have to be in compliance with lot width and area requirements of the ordinances. So for those reasons, I guess as a zoning administrator, I would recommend not approving this. If there's any questions, or Craig, if you want to speak to it.
Well, I visited with Councilman Fernald the other day, and he came over and took pictures, and I think he understands where I'm coming from. I got a $50-some thousand pickup, I can't even pull into that garage, protective hailstorm, if we sell that house and that lot next door. We could do a perpetual easement, but that's gonna run interference with the storage shed that was set on the east side where this easement would have to go through. So, and a perpetual easement is forever. And according to what I've been instructed, that would be the way to go. I don't know, maybe Mr. Palmer has something to add to that or not, I don't know, but.
Well, are you gonna divide this lot and then sell the other
I have
part?
somebody that would like to buy the house and the half lot as it stands.
I see. So you wouldn't own both lots anymore?
No, I would own the east half of the lot and the house,
So do you have to travel on the other lot to get to your garage?
yes. In order to pull in, I have to drive on that lot. There's no ifs, ands, or ways. Even with Mother's Little Road, she has to back up across the property line in order to get a straight shot into the shop, or the garage. And why, I suppose it was built back in 1982, I believe. And we didn't have 4-door, long box, 8-foot pickups. Even Mother's Small Road won't even go in there. What they put in there, I have no idea.
I'm just kind of curious, is there any exceptions when the person that's buying the house knows that doesn't come with it, and that future down the road, they may have a hard time selling the place because they don't own that back lot? Is there any?
I think typically zoning from a city perspective doesn't take into consideration personal property in that regard. It's kind of more future planning and land use, and you know, Craig made a good point. You know, back in the day, everything was so much smaller. You know, our lots of record right now, 9,000 square foot isn't a very big lot when you think about a single family home with the vehicles and garages, the sizes that people want to to build now. And so, you know, as a strategy from the city standpoint, and the council and the Board of Health is, and NCDC, we've kind of talked about this till we're all blue in the face, that, you know, if anybody wants to try to construct a new house in this town, and there is a housing shortage, you need more than one lot typically to do that. So, I think that's another reason why city zoning ordinances, talk about minimum lot sizes and that sort of thing, because once you start splitting off, it just requires that many more lots to be acquired for future development, and that's tough to do, down the road.
I guess the only thing that, the only thing that really concerns me is that I feel it's hard to tell a person that they can't do that when they're surrounded by ones that has happened to.
And then Rod and I talked about that a little bit, you know, that undeniably there are tons of little small lots all over town. Why and when those things were allowed, I don't know, not since my tenure here, but, you know, sometimes the city makes mistakes, sometimes the city does things, and then later down the road, you realize that wasn't the best thing to do. And that's kind of what we're talking about it here today, and why this is up for council discussion and approval. And from my perspective as a zoning administrator, I'm just looking at future planning.
With this, Craig, the house will be on one lot and the garage on
Yeah,
the other.
there's a little outbuilding that sets right alongside the alley. And that would go with the half lot I'm trying to subdivide. Another reason why I'm trying to avoid the easement is, if we run that easement through there, that's gonna put a direct line between the homeowner on that half house, or that half lot, and that shop, or that little outbuilding, which could run into problems way on further down the line.
What do you mean by a direct line?
Well, what I would want the easement across would be right on the west side of that building.
Gotcha.
In an easement, you know, I've got an 18-foot long boat, and I've got pickups, and I got that almost brand new pickup, and a brand new car. And I would sure like to use my garage. And I guess I failed to recognize this problem when we bought the house 2 years ago. I guess I never dreamed that there would probably come across the day we wanted to sell that, which is lack of initiative and thinking on my part.
Now, one of the things the planning commission, you know, this is coming to the city council, because under the city ordinances, you can administratively subdivide lots if it's less than 3 lots of record. And so this is 2, so that's why it's coming to the city council, not the planning commission. But one of the things that the planning commission and the Board of Adjustment talk about regularly too is, you know, just once you make exceptions to rules, you know, because it's a citywide ordinance, you have to consider that thing every time you move forward. It's not to say that certain exceptions shouldn't be made at different times, but just as a common practice, that's a good thing to have in the back of your mind.
Is there anything in the bylaws or the minutes of why this was initiated in 2008 or 2009? What was the reason and purpose behind it?
For the administrative subdivision?
Right, where we gotta have the 9,000 square feet lots.
No, I guess I don't know, Craig, without going back and looking at the minutes, I would tend to think that it probably, was based on that was the current industry practice at the time, you know, we've talked about needing to have the zoning ordinances re-looked at again, because more and more the Board of Adjustment is meeting on a regular basis to address big shops and big garages that, technically aren't allowed under the ordinance. So in order to build those, they have to go get variances or exceptions, basically, from the Board of Adjustment to be able to put those up. And happens so frequently now, which is kind of what I was just talking about, that it's creating the need to actually change the ordinance, because we've allowed it enough times now that it is kind of hard to say no to the next guy that comes along. So we've talked about needing to review the ordinances. A lot of the accessory building regulations anyways they only allow 720 square foot building, and that's it. And 720 square feet for big four-door pickups and boats and campers, that's not really the community need, it seems like, at the moment. So there is a need to relook these things. My guess is that's what happened in 2008, is they were trying to make a standard in future planning and thinking that what's the minimum amount of area to put a decent sized home, on a lot. Apparently in 2008 it was 9,000 square feet. So.
I know you wanna sell the property, you don't want the house anymore, but you own the whole property now, so if nothing was done and you don't sell the house, that does give you right to cross your land.
Correct.
Because you own it now.
Correct.
It sounds like you don't wanna own the house.
Well, it was set up to be a rental.
Yeah.
As plans change, we've had a single guy approach us. He wants to purchase it, cash dollars,
Yeah.
and he is fine with the half lot.
And then say I might be okay with this if you would write, something in it, I don't know if you even could, that you could not, if we did divide it up, you could not, do any construction on that east lot. And if that house was ever sold, then that guy, whoever bought it, or that person, would be able to buy that east lot at fair market value.
I don't know about that.
Even if you could even write an agreement like that, Ron. I know it's getting very dicey there.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? I don't want, say he takes ownership of that east lot, and then he builds a shed on it or something like that, and then,
Yeah, I don't think you could bind future people like that, that they're not a party to the contract,
yeah.
original agreement.
Because, this person might buy the house, this year, and then 2 years down the road, say, well, I'm moving out, I don't want this anymore, and then here we are sitting on two half lots. And I think, and I've been on the, trying to get houses constructed. I know the problem we've been running into with small lots and stuff like that, and I hate to split a lot up and start that precedence and, going forward.
And there's been a couple things that we've done that kind of started a flow of similar requests. And, I don't know how many lots we can divide in the city before it'd be like pretty problematic. I mean, it seems like it's already kind of problematic. So it just makes me hesitate a little bit, I guess.
Well, there's several right there on my block. Councilman Fernald's I give him a map, breakdown of how many is right there on my block and within surrounding areas. So it's not like we'd be going into a new subdivision or wanting to split up a new lot in a new subdivision. And this is a single family home, it's a small home. So, I guess in reality, you was talking about you need almost 2 lots to build a house. Well, anybody wanted to tear the house down where I live in now, that'd be fine, they'd have more than a lot to build on.
My concern on it isn't so much the house sitting on the half lot on the street, and as you point out, there are some smaller lots in your block, but where I see the difference is, at least the ones I can see on the map here, they're on the corners, they've got street access. My concern is, say, in theory, we've got a half lot sitting on an alley, are we then obligated?
Well, this house also sits on the street.
But the house does, but then you've got your other half of that lot, which
Right.
for now, you're gonna use to access your garage if
Correct.
approved. But we can't guarantee that, say, you sell the whole property as a whole, then there's still that half lot sitting out there. What if someone wanted to try and build something? Are we then obligated as the city to provide services to that lot because it is a lot within the city of Ainsworth? And then are we having to get services on alley access at taxpayer expense? That's, to me, where if we are obligated to provide services to every
The
spot in town,
services
does
are
that
already
create
sitting right there. They all come, the services are all right there, gas, electrical, cable,
They
all right
do
down
that.
there.
And, but then you got, I'm sure, surely there's gotta be some sort of street access, mail option. I don't like having a half lot sitting on the alley. You know, I see your other smaller lots, but they've got corner access and the house.
Well, there's a place over on Woodward that's got alley access only.
Where's that?
I believe it's 325 Woodward Street. I believe the house is listed under Tim and Amanda Bunch.
You look at it.
But yeah, Lisa's right, there has been some done prior to this
Yeah,
council.
there's no doubt about
Yeah,
it.
there is, and
Craig's right.
And I've
You
seen,
can see it all
several of
over.
them too. I drove around enough that I know there's lots that houses are on with no alley access and half lots that have been done.
Yeah.
The council's not binded to prior decisions of prior council.
Do we have any idea when the last time a lot would have been divided?
Well, I've been here, it'll be 6 years in July, and that hasn't happened since I've been here, so prior to that, I wouldn't know.
And you said the ordinance was in 2009?
2008.
There's hasn't been one after that. 12, 13 years.
No, 2008, February 13th.
It's the next house north of Jackson. that
I've got it
shows.
here. So, I mean, yeah, you're right, there are some in town, but still, to me, it does go a little bit outside of what our goals as a city in terms of housing are. To me, where you do have the option to do that easement. If the buyer doesn't, it sounds like if they don't care if they've got that lot or not, they shouldn't.
I
care if
just
you
look
got
at
an
that to
easement
be
on it.
bad blood between me and my buyer, because if I've got my pickups parked there in that easement area, or my boat, because I've
Well-
got pickups in the garage, and he's wanting in that shed,
Now,
and I'm out of town, where are we gonna run across them?
so you're not necessarily wanting just to cross it, you're wanting to have the whole lot to.
Well, no, I'm just saying, well, yes, it's, I've gotta have it, but I don't have room to park everything unless I park right in the middle of my yard. And I don't have much yard, because the damn thing's all over cement, which is my fault number two. But in order to get in and out, even with a boat or a pickup, I gotta cross that ground. And if I, well,
Would you write Vance that an access easement is different than parking stuff on it?
Yeah,
That's,
yeah, I
two
mean,
different
now
things.
it sounds, because when initially it was more, my thought was you needed to cross it just to get your.
no,
into
that's
the
the
garage,
main,
And now we're talking parking on it, and so. it seems-
that's the main object, is to get in and out of my garage. And it's just a two-car garage.
Well, I think since you already own the property, and so, some of the properties where you kind of come into the dilemma of the back access, and that you own the property now, so it actually solves the problem of your access to the property, of what you're wanting to do. I'm gonna make the motion to deny the application.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
I mean, it is tough, and I do feel for you, but where you do have the option, you do have options, I think, with selling the property.
Okay, what happens when I sell the property? And they put a fence up down that line.
But if you've got a access easement, sounds like that would give you
Okay,
access to
what,
it.
what is, do you know the definition of a perpetual easement? I've been advised to put on there.
To me,
That's a lifetime and forever.
yeah, you would have, basically that property of yours would, whoever owns that would have that same right that you would have in the time being to cross over your neighboring property to access your garage.
Okay, just like Councilman Brad up there a minute ago said, if whoever comes in buys this house decides to move out 2 years later, and then perpetual easements on there, the next person that buys it, which he should realize it's there. But that's gonna cause, that could very well cause problems down the road.
I could see there could be.
Because he puts that fence up to keep his damn dogs in, then I can't get across there.
But if you own the property now, and you keep access to that whole property, your problem's solved, you just won't be able to sell the house the way you want to, and so,
So bend over otherwise.
you know, your problem is solved as long as you don't sell your house. And you own the property and you're able to access it, and you can do what you want to that property because you own it, as long as you own the whole lot.
Well, as it says right now, we want to sell the house and half the lot, 4,500 square feet.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, but I'm not in favor of that.
Ready to call the roll?
Brad,
Yes.
Sean,
No.
Skylar,
Aye.
Vance,
Aye.
Motion carried 3-1. Thanks, Terry.
Now, thank you.
Move on, item B, consider contract for services with CDS inspections and beyond for housing specialist services. And the basement specialist services.
So I think for the most part, we've reviewed these last month. We selected CDS inspection and beyond last month to award these contracts, and she had provided samples. So these are the formal contracts of those, one for lead-based paint services and one for the housing management services. And as we mentioned before, the CDS is who we're currently using, so this is kind of just an updating of our agreements with them for the OOR program as a part of the repurposing of that $25,000 and change that will be going into the OOR program. Does anybody have questions on these?
So you just need authorization to
Pretty much just a motion so that
Sign.
you can sign the contracts, yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the contracts for services with CDS inspections and beyond, for the lead-based paint specialized services, owner occupied housing rehabilitation program.
Second.
move in second. Any other discussion? Ready to call the roll?
Sean,
Aye.
Skylar,
Aye.
Vance,
Aye.
Brad,
Yes.
Motion carried 4-0.
oh no.
Ready to take them?
First one
I
of
brought
the year.
Who brings
I
it?
brought it, I think Vance did.
They probably hitched a ride on Brad, knew he was coming in. I'd have to get some.
We've got all the
Early in the
minutes.
year.
We've got all the minutes.
We have such a landscape.
Put the record this way.
Pest control, $5,000.
I think it
Fumigate.
came out of my hair.
Yeah. He was looking for a spot, couldn't find one.
They went on the table. I'll play with him the rest of the meeting.
All right. Now we're getting into my neighborhood. On the regular agenda, we're gonna discuss and consider recommendation for an application of Nebraska Liquor Control Commission for addition of outdoor area to the 402 bar. Any,
So this is a current liquor licensee, they're just wanting to expand, have an exterior beer garden area. They have applied for a fence permit with the city already, it's in accordance with the regulations on fences, so I would recommend approval.
I can look through it and I'll go back by there and stuff like that. And I think we talked about it a year ago, and I think there's some items that came up that you weren't able to do it last year or something, so I would make a motion to approve the liquor license for the expansion of the outdoor beer garden.
Second.
move in second, any other discussion? Go ahead and call the roll.
Skylar,
Aye.
Vance,
Aye.
Brad?
Yes.
Sean?
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. 2 years worth of alumni coming back. We gotta try to figure out something.
Needs a little extra outdoor space.
A little bit, yeah.
Item B, consider ordinance number 1547, authorizing the issuance of sewer revenue bond.
So these next four items really are all kind of tied together, if you will. I guess for Vance and Sean, because you guys are relatively new, since this project's been in existence for, well, when did we start it? 2017 was the study, 2019 was starting the project. It was initially put together as a funding package that came to the city council that initiated the whole project. The funding package came in at this 40-year loan with USDA at the $1.274 million, $385,000 Cdbg grant that would cover the sewer portions, and then a $453,000 in USDA grant funds. So the loan, basically, the way the USDA loans work is you have to construct first and then you close the loan. The loan pays off your interim construction financing. So what the city chose to do at the time for interim construction financing was bond anticipation notes. And so we took out a series of bands, 3 in fact, that are on the agenda here as well. And that's what floated the boat really throughout the project. We took out a little bit more than the 1.274, mostly because CDBG drawdowns come as a reimbursement, so you have to expend it, and then make sure the check is cleared, and then you can request the drawdown as a reimbursement. So we needed a little bit of cushion for those delays for the reimbursement. So now that the project construction is completed, we're ready to close the loan. Once we close the loan, we can pay off the bond anticipation notes. We have to give a 30-day notice under regulations to the bond anticipation note holders. So the passing of this ordinance and the adoption of those next 3 resolutions allows us to do all of that. Basically, pay off the bands, sign the note with USDA, then we'll have a long-term debt payment to USDA. It's a 40-year note at 1.375% interest, which is a better rate than what we're paying on the bands at the moment. So the faster we can get them paid off, the better. I think it's about 1.8 on the bands. So does anyone have any questions about all of that?
And you said the refinance is better in 40 years?
40 years, that's correct. And as you know, I guess for you too, part of the process of this was the city did a 3-year rate increase on sewer rates as a means to pay this note. So we did our last rate increase, I think it was January 1st of this year. That was the 3rd year. We had done one January 1st last year and one January 1st the year prior. So the sewer rates that we're receiving now are such that it can pay this debt. We also have debt service that helps with that. So, there's no question on how we're gonna pay the note.
How are you gonna pay off $1,460,000 with a bond of $1,274,000?
Yep, so the extra was for CDBG funds. So we have received, I think as I noted on the treasurer's report earlier, $350,000 reimbursements from CDBG. So some of that will have to come out of general funds, yes, to pay that excess.
You think 40 years seems like a long time, but what we just put in 40 years before we have it paid off, it'll be need to be replaced again. I mean, in your mind, you think, you know.
Yeah, it's a bit maddening. Isn't
Yeah, it is.
So, if anyone would like to introduce this ordinance, I can pass it to you if you'd like to read it aloud.
Sure.
You want to read it
Well,
aloud?
I'll try. So, you know,
It's
the educational system being
The caps
57, which is an ordinance authorizing the issuance of a sewer revenue bond series 2021 of the city of Ainsworth, Nebraska, in the principal amount of $1,274,000 for the purpose of constructing additions and improvements to the sanitary sewer system of the city, prescribing the form of said bond, pledging and hypothecating the revenues and earnings of the sanitary sewer plant and system owned by the city for the payment of said bond, entering into a contract on behalf of the city with the holder of said bond, providing for the sale of the bond, authorizing the delivery of the bond to the purchaser, providing for the disposition of the bond proceeds, and ordering the ordinance published in pamphlet form.
So if someone would like to make a motion to adopt that, please keep in mind you'd have to also ask to waive the 3 readings for it to be adopted today.
I make a motion to adopt ordinance 1547 and waive the 3 readings.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Anybody else want to read it? Go ahead and call the roll.
Vance.
Aye.
Brad.
Yes.
Sean.
Aye.
Skylar.
Motion carried unanimously. So we will move on to consider resolution number 2104.
Okay, now that we've approved the closing of the loan, if we would please approve the resolutions to allow for the paying off of the bond anticipation notes.
I make a motion to adopt, or 2104, how do I want to say that? Resolution 2104, calling sewer utility bond application notes series 2019 dated July 9, 2019, and the principal amount of $200,000.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Can you call the roll?
Brad.
Yes.
Sean.
Aye.
Skylar.
Aye.
Vance.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously. On to item D, resolution number 2105.
We adopt resolution number 2105, calling sewer utility bond as anticipation notes series 2020B dated August 19th, 2020, in the principal amount of $1,010,000.
Second.
That might have been a tie. There was a second to the motion. Any other discussion? Can you call the roll?
Sean.
Aye.
Skylar.
Aye.
Vance.
Aye.
Brad.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously. Item E, consider resolution number 2106.
We adopt resolution 21-06, calling the sewer utility bond anticipation notes series 2020 dated June 17th, 2020, and the principal amount of $250,000.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Call the roll.
Skylar.
Aye.
Vance.
Aye.
Brad.
Yes.
Sean.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
The 40-year note on that, that's a requirement of that USDA program, right? It has to be that amount. And is there something, not, just to Brad's point, is there something that would say after a certain number of years, you could, like, I use the hospital bonds, for instance, every 5 years, they have the ability to go in and refinance the bond that they had and either make additional principal payments or shorten the length or change the rates if the rates are more favorable. Now, I doubt the rates would be more favorable than what you received, but if the council decided in the future it wanted to shorten the length of that, after you've set it initially, do you have that ability, or with this one, is it set in stone, it has to be for the 40-year term?
We talked about that early on, and it's my understanding that yes, we can do that.
Can do that if you'd like, because Brad mentioned down the road, if you wanted to if your revenue was there to,
Yeah, pay it off with.
or just even to shorten the length of the term,
And
but.
I know there are some other communities that have done that, you know, they've paid off the note with some other means of financing to kind of get out from underneath, like the
The 40,
USDA
gotcha, yeah,
reporting
yeah,
requirements.
yeah.
Well, like, the county's looking right now at bonds that are 1%.
Yeah. I agree, you know, 1.375 is, you know, pretty good interest.
Yeah, that's
Now,
really
Yeah.
good.
You know, if we get down to 1.
Two months ago, the county was looking at bonds that were 0.43.
Exactly.
You know,
So-
and they've gone up a little over 0.5% in just a short amount of time, but
Yeah,
Yeah, I just didn't know if you had that flexibility with that,
Yeah.
because all those programs are different. I didn't know if that flexibility was there if you eventually wanted to refinance it and drop the term. Rob doesn't mind paying an extra $40-50 a month for sewer if you wanna do that.
you know,
just Rod.
it really bums me that my sewer line went bad, because I was getting by real cheap. Just dumping it into the storm sewer.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think we've set a record that since I've been involved. We've completed the agenda, so.
I got a couple of comments, I guess. I noticed that we got a grant for the workers to wear protective clothing and stuff like that, and I'm seeing that they're starting to wear them out and about, which I like seeing. They're more visible. The vehicles, I think that's pretty nice, seeing them drive around and they got the lights on them and they got tags on them, so we know that they're city vehicles, which is really nice. I would like to see maybe the people on the back of the garbage truck wear their protective clothing, especially when they're hooking up dumpsters and stuff, and people are backing up, that they're visible. I know some of them wear a gray sweatshirt and stuff like that. You know, I'd like to see us be a little bit more safer when we're doing, if that's all possible, because I know we did get a grant to get some high visible clothing and stuff like that. And so if we, you know,
I
make
can't
a look into
remember
that.
the number of t-shirts everybody got, 2 or 3 apiece.
And they've been wearing them, like, even in cold weather, they've been wearing their hooded sweatshirts that are high visible clothing, which is nice to see.
And they are required to wear gloves, just because of that, because we've had a lot of incidents, with the dumpsters holding the ears on and getting fingers smashed. Yeah, maybe.
And how are we coming, an update like on the Highway 20 project?
Sure. So the Highway 20 project, you know, we signed the finance agreement quite a while ago, giving the city some options and the bid letting. Bid letting did occur April 8th. I haven't heard officially from NDOT, so I don't want to make speculating comments as to what the bids looked like or didn't look like. I've sort of heard that maybe they weren't favorable, so, but like I said, I haven't heard from Mark directly. So I'm not sure where we're at with that, if they're going to.
So we don't know when construction might be beginning and stuff like that. 'Cause I know, you know, they've got a lot of, you can see a lot of flagging up and down Highway 20 now. They've cut trees down, so like in anticipation of it. So I think people are thinking that it's gonna start, you know, sometime soon. And I didn't know if you knew any updates of that, if I'm
A
asking.
lot of what I've heard is just sort of through the wind, because I don't want to release something that maybe NDOT hasn't publicly released otherwise, but, I think it's unknown at this time. And yeah, go ahead, Brad.
I asked the same thing about all the flagging and the line, painted lines and all that, and was told, and, you know, fairly reliable source, that they had to do that prior to the bid letting, so the contractors kind of have an idea where the utilities are and what they were looking at and that type of thing. Because, you know, with putting in the sidewalks along the highway and things like that, they have to take into consideration the utility. That's what I was told. Whether that's exact or not, I don't know, because mine was the same thought. Well, gosh, you know, and this was before the bid letting on the 8th. And I thought it was a little early, but that's what I was told. They are required to do that so the people bidding on it have an idea of where the utilities and that are when they're making but it seemed kind of late for that. Early for the construction, but late for the bidding process, so I don't know.
And I know initially, before it was bid, like, just in conversation with Mark Kovar, he had said, you know, that the construction initiation would really depend on the bids of the contractors, you know, because they were hoping for this summer, fall yet, but realized that it could be next spring or summer, depending on how the bids fell, what the contractors' schedules were like. And like I said, I haven't received official word back from NDOT on where things are sitting, but I have had some conversations with them about Highway 7, and it is apparently officially on the schedule for 2024. So one of the
Twenty-three
things.
last time I heard, so they're back another year again, huh?
Yeah, but they are working on preliminary planning, because they've called with some questions, which is a good thing. You know, they're actually maybe working up some documents, so that's always promising. But with that in mind, you know, we've talked about, we did the sewer study in 2017, of course, that talked about the replacement of the sewer main down Main Street, which was, I think, at that point in time, estimated at about $2 million to do that. We also, I'm fairly certain, are gonna have to replace the water mains under Main Street also. So we're looking at a pretty big dollar project there, potentially in 2024. The last water study that the city had done was in 1999. You do need typically current studies for grant applications. So I would make the recommendation to the city council that we move forward and work on updating that water study. There might be some SRF funds that we can apply for that. I know when we did the sewer study, HHS provided some funding to help offset the cost of the study. So I do plan to look into that.
Your chance you have that on the June, I think we got quite a bit on the May, so if you can get that on the June
It's
agenda.
gonna be a fairly large project. It'll be like the sewer study that took about 18 months to complete, and it's a fairly pricey project to do a big full study. So I guess my thought would be that I would look into some funding options, and under our procurement policy, we'll probably have to put out an RFP, or an RFQ, depending on what the city council, if you want to look at qualifications, or if you want to look at actual proposals and dollar amounts.
So studying that to get that probably would take more than a couple months to do that.
We probably need to do it sooner than later, so that we have the results in, and then have time to make grant applications for downtown revitalization, or whatever else we might want to make applications for that big project.
Now, the sewer, is that going down Main Street, is that connecting it all the way down to the sewer plant? So does that south or north main have to be tore up too? Do you know?
Yes.
It does, so. there's
Because
going-
that $2 million pricing, estimated pricing, of course, was with Highway 7, I think, from southern corporate boundary to Highway 20, removed by NDOT, and then Highway 20 to the plant removed by the city and replaced.
Also, that estimate did have the Department of Transportation handling the
Yeah, so think about
highway
it would be
removal
the.
portion. Yeah, right, that's what I was gonna ask, if that $2 million included
Yeah.
us having to do that, or if that was part of the city, or the state doing it, so.
So, I guess to clarify, when do you think we should, we can't do it tonight, vote on, going forward with the study, so, because we don't have it on the agenda, so when should we have that on the agenda to move forward with that study and stuff?
I think we could probably move forward with researching the funding and going ahead and putting out an RFP. It would come back to the city council to make a selection.
And how long would that take?
I'd have to look at our policy, but I believe we have to advertise for 3 to 4 weeks. So it'd be a good month and a half before the city council would have that information. Then we'd have to sit down and score the results of any respondents, so that the city council can consider that to make your selection.
So maybe we can grant initial council probably June, hopefully,
Yeah.
that would be there in 2027, maybe,
Just another piece
Be
of,
expired by then.
Did you say 37?
Yeah.
another piece of information that was the thought at that time, was to do a complete downtown revitalization when DOT did Highway 7. So there are grants and things that can be applied for that as well. One of the things that earns you some additional points for downtown revitalization would be if the city of Gainesburg was noted as a leadership community through DED. There are some requirements that would have to be met to get that designation, but it would certainly be worth checking out to get some extra points, I guess, on a grant application.
When the construction is from storefront to storefront, right? All the sidewalks that get tore out. that's
Right, because
storefront.
NDOT actually owns in their right of way storefront to storefront.
So all be tore out.
Yeah.
There was a study done that incorporated both Main Street and Highway 20, and I don't remember, it was probably in the mid-2010s or like 14s. But there was, I don't know if it was RDG that did, when you remember that, Rod? They came in and did the big, because the one that got all the laughs was they put a
Yeah.
bike lane in and everything, but I don't know where that would even be at this point, because
Seems
it's
like a long
several,
time
several
ago.
years old. But it was when they were first looking at the Highway 20, but they incorporated 20 and Main Street. And it was one of those, it was a fairly expensive study that the city did, and then it's just kind of sat there for, for however long, but, because it was dealing with the light pole issue, what they, options for the light poles.
Like trash can.
Yep,
Oh,
all those
yeah, the
different
corner-
things, sidewalks.
Corners coming in were fancy, yeah. it
Yeah,
was-
and like I said, I don't even know where that study would be, but there had been one
We have
done.
that
I was
here.
gonna say, there's gotta be pictures, they had pictures and the whole nine, renditions,
Yep.
drawings.
So they cut down
That used to
over
float
trees.
around here.
Actually, that was one of the questions they asked me, is if we might want trees on Highway 7.
I'll be fine.
Trees are always controversial, it seems like. But, so yeah, that's.
If it was handled right, the trees would have been all right. Cause when, Pat Lentz's dad, Ralph, when he proposed that, they were supposed to go in and be there for like 5 years and then pulled out and replaced. So they weren't getting humongous and into the water and sewer lines or break up the cement, that type of thing.
Two nicest trees though was one in front of Angel's, the radio station and Ford.
Well, that's
Two nicest
gone.
trees.
Yeah, the one in front of the radio station was beautiful,
That's
but
a
then
beautiful
they
tree.
cut it down.
Yeah.
I saw when I went by, it said it was starting to get into, they're starting to knock stuff
Yeah,
off
they got
the
too big,
building.
like you said.
Yeah, they were
But it was
supposed to be
pretty tree.
replaced every between 5 and 10 years or something like that, so they didn't get so big. But hindsight.
They're supposed to be miniature, non-fruit bearing also.
Yes.
See, that's what I remember, is they weren't supposed to grow very tall, and they weren't supposed to produce any fruit, and that didn't work out.
We ordered bonsai trees.
Yeah,
I had
nobody
great-
could figure out how to trim them.
I had great purple plums there for a long time.
Did you?
They were good.
We could just make some jam,
I
sell
did.
it out of the
They
office.
were really good plums.
Rod Palmer's Bramble Jam.
Or we could go back to do Daniel's plan, was that to cover Main Street?
I remember going to that meeting.
You wanted to cover it, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Cut down on snow removal.
That's true.
As long
Well,
as
you
it
could have
held.
conventions,
Cover what?
you'd have
Just like a,
large convention. area.
From,
Peterbilt
Yeah.
from the west side of storefront, or the alley on the west to the alley on the east.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly, but it was,
uh,
yeah,
Just a
and
canopy type of thing, or?
You know, the parking was on top.
Oh, wow.
Really covered.
it was
that'd
something.
be pretty cool.
That is
See
on
something to
Kennedy
see.
Street.
What's that?
Fremont Street in Vegas.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, at least the 2 blocks, I don't know if it went down to like Buckles.
I don't think it did. I think it started at the bank and came down halfway, like to maybe
Yeah.
where.
Just think of the Christmas lights you could put up in there, shining the street.
Before you see that highway 20 and the-
Yeah, sorry about that. Let's see, what else do I have on here? Oh, Cody and I attended a land banking workshop in Bassett. That was really interesting. I don't know if any of you are familiar with land banking. It's kind of a foreign concept out here, not so much in Omaha and Lincoln, but Land banking has been passed through the legislature now to be approved for second-class cities. And before it was restricted pretty much to Omaha and Lincoln. We can do it, we just have to do it as an interlocal with other communities, so that makes it a little trickier. But they seem to have put on an informational workshop on land banking for the development district area. And a guy by the name of Marty Barnhart came and spoke, and he was involved in the Omaha Land Bank for years, so he had a lot of experience with it. It was quite interesting. Sounds like if executed right, could really address a lot of our issues that we have with vacant housing, substandard and dilapidated properties that are absentee owner type, just getting them cleared and redeveloped. So that was pretty interesting, at least kind of getting the wheels turning maybe for our local entities of how we can collaborate and work together, because we all have these same problems. FEMA, I had, back in February, requested a reimbursement for $519,250.49. That was to cover their portion of the street repair contracts, materials, and wages. We have not received that yet. I've put in several inquiries, I guess, about it. Haven't really gotten very far with that, so I'm not sure what the holdup is. I haven't even received any questions on it, so I don't know if they're just backlogged or what that situation is. Yeah. I put in another request here in March for $7,249.95, and that was to cover some administration expenses, which was really mostly just my time, a little bit of time from Cody and Lindy on billing, claims reports, I guess, and some supplies that we bought early on to help with the project. So that's just hanging out there, basically. Dana F. Cole, talked to them several times. They're verbally have confirmed that our annual audit report, the draft, has been made and sent on to Lincoln for review. I don't have a copy of the report yet, but supposedly it is done. They are still working on the single audit, which, because the city expended more than $750,000 in federal funds, so that would include USDA, FEMA, and Cdbg funds. We had some planning grants, and at the end of the day, it calculated to be more than $750,000. We have to have a single audit that focuses specifically on those projects and those funds. So I think they have until May, the end of May, to complete that. So they're still working on that. We're still helping them with that. We did a tree limb pickup on March 29th. We had 30 people roughly sign up in the community for limbs to be picked up, and according to the street department, we took 7 loads out to the dump. So it was a pretty good response, I feel like. We've got a lot of building permits coming in. Just as a side note, I think we have had almost 8 just this month, and three of those have gone to the Board of Adjustment because they are bigger buildings than what our ordinances allow. So that's one of the focuses of the office. It's going to be is kind of looking at zoning ordinances, maybe working with the Planning Commission to see how we can address that, so the Board of Adjustment isn't meeting every other week to talk about those things. Anybody have any questions?
Talked to Wendy, she says that their new software program is working very well. Just about all caught up and running smoothly, which
Yeah.
is good.
Well, we'll have another piece come out. I think we've talked about it before, but it's getting closer. We have training on Tuesday. It'll be the online portion for the community and for the residents. So we've kind of had our updates internally. This next update will really focus more on external user and allow residents a lot more move outside of maybe in person in the office, so that's some good flexibility. With that came an update to our credit card processing system, so we're kind of working through that right now, but there won't be a change on the resident or the customer. That's more important change.
I'd give you guys one quick update on the demo for the ABC funding that you guys approved. We have run into an issue where we cannot find insurance for when NCDC takes ownership of the property. In the past, the housing committee that the NCDC had basically had kind of a blanket insurance policy that was just for any projects that were being undertaken. Well, that was no longer available, and they are running into trouble trying to find anybody to even insure the NCDC for, they were wanting like $5,000 per site. And, a non-starter. So they're working with one of the local insurance agencies through another town as well, trying to kind of put together ways to make something work. So we'll have that on our NCDC agenda next week. We pushed our meeting back a week just to give them a little bit more time to try to see if they can have any kind of proposals, I guess we'll have the conversation on, do we go without insurance? Do we require some other type of, we may have to get creative to just try to figure out how to make that work. But it worked smooth when it was the previous housing committee, but the policy type that they had is no longer, they won't write that type of policy. So trying to find something different that works without it being just completely cost prohibitive is what they're trying to do now. So it's, that's a little bit, I think they've got some properties that are ready once they can get that issue figured out. So that's kind of where we are. We'll probably have, maybe in the next month's meeting, we'll have a little bit more information after our meeting next week on what options we might have. But that's where we're at right now. Otherwise, I think we would have been ready potentially to start acquiring a couple of properties and maybe doing some burns and that type of stuff. But we've got to get that issue figured out. And I may not be the popular person, but I may lobby that NCDC just goes without insurance on those. It's not like have a whole mountain of assets that we would be subject to losing. And like I said, that's just me, and I may be in the complete minority on even suggesting that, and there may be reasons why that's a completely horrible idea. But I don't know, I'm just about trying to think, okay, how do we get this done? Do we go without insurance? I don't think in any of the other housing projects they ever had a claim or anything like that where insurance would have been needed, but obviously you always run that risk. So like I said, I don't know if that's even an option but they're gonna try to continue to see if they're working with a couple of different insurance companies to see if there's a way they can write a policy that will work for what we need it for. So that's kind of where we're at, so you don't think that, hey, why aren't we seeing a bunch of stuff getting torn down already? That's kind of where we're at.
We definitely need to start moving forward a
Yeah.
little more with our nuisance because
Yeah.
we see a few houses, properties are getting cleaned up, but I think we're starting to see more and more junky places again. I think we're going backwards.
Well, I got one north of the radio station that hasn't had basement windows in it for I don't know how long. Oh,
I know they're on that one.
oh,
I've called twice.
we in the co-op have both at one point tried to get that house, and there's not a willing seller on the property.
We got one on First Street that has done a remarkable job cleaning it up and looks really, really nice, so
Yeah,
I commend them.
middle of, I think I know which
Across
one you're
from
talking
your-
about, across from Corleane's there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's really nice.
I went by there the day, they had 3 or 4 pickups, and there were
Yeah.
a bunch of them working.
Yeah, it just kept getting junkier and junkier, and I was wondering when you guys might step in, and then all of a sudden they go by it,
Yeah.
boy, it's just
It looks
totally
nice,
different.
so gotta commend that property owner
Yeah.
for doing that. But like I say, driving around town, some of the ones that we've got on before are kind of back to their same old deals again, and we somehow need to stay on top of it. I know it's a hassle for the city, and trying to get to stick to the court systems and stuff like that as a household, we just need to stay on top of it and not let go.
There was a number of them that kind of said, well, when the weather gets nicer, so we were sort of giving them till May, and that's coming up, so. it's like,
Yeah.
You know, I think the first project I think we've got potentially in the pipe would be a really nice improvement. It would get rid of 2 bad ones on consecutive lots. It would be a great project. I think that would, if that's still in the pipeline anyway, if they can get that figured out, I think that'd be just the really good one to start with, so we'll see.
Other one, do you have a lot where you've got multiple lots, because we're talking, you kind of have to do that?
The one that we're thinking, it's 2 of them that would be on the nuisance list, and they're right next to each other, and it would be
But outside
really
of that, of the other,
in a nice part, kind of a nicer part of, you know, a decent part of town, that if we could get those, it's highly visible, if that could be kind of our first ones, I think that would be a really big help. But well, like I said, once we get that solved, I think we're ready to start acquiring and getting some of those agreements written and utilizing the fire department if they're willing, and getting some of those going. But like I said, once we get past that issue, we should be ready to start working.
How's the fire department insurance? If you go to burn down, they don't have their insurance.
We probably won't burn it because,
Yeah, I get it, I get it, that's,
because we got a lot more to lose. We got 2 entities that they could pull back on, and then we can't afford to do that, so.
yeah. And that's why, like I said, that's what we've got to work through. Like I said, my proposal would go to that insurance. I'm sure there's a whole pile of reasons why that won't work, that's why.
oh, we're already tearing this down.
It's the house next door.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know.
Yeah, it'd be fine if it wasn't anything close,
yeah.
Everybody always seems to be hurry.
Three River, where do you stand on that? We haven't seen a franchise agreement or anything, and
We responded, if you recall, John handed out a little list of things that were oppressive, or
That's a bullet points of concerns I had with the initial agreement that was sent out from the city to them. More of a consolidated, rather than, because that red line was, everything was red. So we worked, and basically we worked off of their bullet points of concerns with that initial agreement to kind of see where we've got some room to negotiate, where we're pretty firm. And I think from there, plan is to move forward, working with them on that, just to find out what are their priorities, what are our priorities, and how we can come together. I mean, each side's gonna have to do a little bit, I'm sure.
yeah, but without that, then the internet thing is dead, isn't it?
What's that, which portion?
Well, as I understood it, for them, to apply for the $400 and some thousand that the city had available for high-speed internet, they had to have a franchise with the city
Under the CARES Act.
under the CARES Act. So if they don't have a franchise, then they can't get that $400,000, so the internet's dead.
They already got it.
Okay.
They already got the money. Because we signed off on completion of the project.
We actually have.
That was a requirement of DED, that they have up-to-date agreements with the communities they're working in.
Mhm.
That's, so
We did that.
potentially DED could come back to them and say, we're taking the money back because you do not have, you told us you had an agreement and you don't.
We signed off on the project, was that like end of December? I think we signed off on the project,
Yeah, I
and
think-
saying that they were complete
Yeah.
of the project.
That part of the project was
Yeah.
complete.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't know, if you know, that the last time they were here, they said, well, you just have to do some testing and then they'd start hooking people up, but, you know, I don't know where that is. They responded to, we sent them our response to the bullet points, they responded, said, let's get together and work it out. With any luck, we'll have an agreement for the council to consider in May. That's our goal. You didn't happen to see the article in the Holt County Independent, did you?
No, I didn't. I forgot to look at our last meeting.
I appreciate that the Star Journal doesn't do that and call it reporting. Pretty unbelievable in my estimation, but it's,
Brian, just on conversation, he kind of was hoping maybe by the end of this month, having several people hooked up across the city at different areas to do some testing, to see how it works, but.
I know, I talked to him 2-3 weeks ago, and they're struggling with, some of their equipment wasn't cooperating quite right. And they were trying to get that figured out. Yeah, I could care less about the franchise cable TV. I want high-speed internet.
I do too, because I have another one right now.
Oh, you don't
As
have
far as
any?
I know, nothing we're doing is holding that up.
Yeah. You got the letter signed and, or,
They've already got their
Yeah.
money, they're working as fast as they can or want to.
Yeah, we're not stopping them right now to hook it up residents.
No, they,
No, we're not, they can hook up residents tomorrow if they want to, if they're able to. We're not holding them back at all, we're not standing in their way.
well, we can be talking, but at 6:15, meeting's adjourned.
Sounds good.
From you?
Yes. We're talking about,
Channel 7.
scheduling meetings.